It's the lifeblood of our modern world, an unseen force that powers nearly every aspect of our daily lives, from the fuel in our cars to the plastics in our homes, from the fertilizers that grow our food to the energy that lights our cities. Every day, countries all over the world engage in a relentless, high-stakes dance of buying and selling this one commodity, crude oil. It is, without exaggeration, the most important resource on Earth. This global market is a colossal machine with billions of barrels changing hands, fueling economies, and shaping the destinies of nations. The sheer scale is almost impossible to comprehend, a constant flow of black gold crisscrossing the planet, dictating the pace of human progress. But beneath the surface of this vast, complex trade, there lies a hidden mechanism, a fundamental rule that governs almost every single transaction. And here's what most people don't realize. Almost all of that oil, whether it's sold by Saudi Arabia to Japan or by Nigeria to India, is priced and paid for in one and only one currency: the US dollar. Think about that. A country like Germany, using the euro, must first acquire US dollars to buy oil from a country like Iraq, which has its own currency, the dinar. Neither of their native currencies is used in the final settlement. Instead, the transaction is routed through the American financial system using America's money. This isn't a coincidence or a matter of simple convenience. It's a deliberately constructed system, an agreement that has underpinned global finance for half a century. This system is called the Petrodollar, and it quietly shapes the global economy, American power, and even your personal cost of living in ways you've likely never considered. Born from a crisis in the 1970s, when the US severed the dollar's link to gold, the petrodollar system was a masterful stroke of economic statecraft. It forged an unbreakable link between the world's most essential commodity and the world's most powerful currency. For the United States, it created a constant, artificial demand for its dollars, allowing it to run massive trade deficits and borrow at lower costs. It effectively turned the Federal Reserve into the world's central bank and Wall Street into its indispensable financial hub. For the rest of the world, it provided a stable, liquid, and reliable way to conduct energy trade. But it also meant that every nation on Earth became, in some way, dependent on American monetary policy and geopolitical decisions. This arrangement has been the bedrock of the global order for 50 years. But today, the ground is shifting. Major economic powers like China and Russia are actively seeking alternatives, creating new ways to trade oil outside the dollar's domain. Other nations are exploring bilateral agreements, digital currencies, and even a return to gold to bypass the system. The world is quietly asking, why should the global energy market be tethered to the currency of a single nation? The implications of this shift are monumental. The end of the petrodollar wouldn't just be a financial headline. It could trigger a seismic realignment of global power, reshape international alliances, and have profound consequences for the US economy and the value of the money in your pocket. The era of the petrodollar's undisputed dominance may be drawing to a close, forcing us to confront two critical questions. So how does this powerful system truly work? And what happens if it collapses? To understand the global economy, you have to understand the petrodollar. It's a term you might have heard, but what does it actually mean? At its core, the petrodollar isn't a physical currency. You can't hold a petrodollar in your hand. Instead, it's a system, an agreement really, that has shaped international finance for nearly half a century. The fundamental rule of this system is simple. The vast majority of crude oil traded on the international market must be priced and paid for in US dollars. So, if Japan wants to buy oil from Saudi Arabia, or if Germany needs to purchase a shipment from Kuwait, the transaction isn't settled in yen or euros. It's settled in American dollars. This applies even when the United States isn't directly involved in the trade at all. Think of it like this. Oil is the world's most vital commodity, the lifeblood of industry and transportation. By making the US dollar the mandatory currency for buying that commodity, the system effectively links the world's energy needs directly to the American currency. This creates a powerful and persistent cycle. Any country that needs to import oil, which is nearly every country on Earth, must first acquire US dollars to pay for it. They do this by selling their own goods and services on the global market for dollars, or by exchanging their local currency for dollars in the foreign exchange markets. This generates a constant, artificial demand for the US dollar that has nothing to do with the strength of the American economy itself. Whether you're a manufacturer in South Korea, a farmer in Brazil, or a government official in Nigeria, if you need energy, you need dollars. This underpins the dollar's status as the world's primary reserve currency, giving the United States a unique and powerful position in the global financial order. To understand the petrodollar, we have to go back to the 1970s. Soft cinematic bokeh. This created a new global system where oil demand equals dollar demand. The petrodollar doesn't just power oil, it powers the global economy. This system gives the US enormous financial influence over the world. If you don't control dollars, you're at a disadvantage in the global economy. This wouldn't just be an economic shift, it would be a global power shift. The reason the world hasn't moved away from the petrodollar is simple. The current system may not be perfect, but it's deeply entrenched. So, we arrive at the end of our journey, having untangled the threads of one of the most powerful and least understood systems in the world, the petrodollar. For half a century, this financial architecture has been the bedrock of the global economy. An invisible force shaping everything from the price of gasoline at the pump to the balance of geopolitical power. It began as a pragmatic solution to a series of crises in the 1970s, a grand bargain between the world's largest oil producer, Saudi Arabia, and its largest consumer, the United States. The deal was simple yet profound. Oil would be priced exclusively in US dollars, and in return, the US would offer military protection and investment opportunities. This arrangement created a constant, artificial demand for the US dollar. Any nation needing to buy oil, which is to say every nation, first had to acquire dollars. This funneled immense wealth and influence toward the United States. It allowed the US to run massive trade deficits, borrowing cheaply from the very countries that bought its debt with their recycled petrodollars. This is the privilege of seigniorage on a global scale, the ability to print the world's money and have others bear the cost. It explains why the US holds so much influence, not just through its military might, but through its structural position at the heart of global finance. But as we've seen, this system creates winners and losers. For developing nations, the need to constantly accumulate dollars to pay for essential energy imports can be a crushing burden, leading to currency instability and imported inflation. Now, the tectonic plates of the global order are shifting. The rise of new economic powers like China, Russia's strategic pivot away from the dollar, and the desire of many nations for greater monetary sovereignty are creating cracks in this 50-year-old foundation. We see the emergence of alternatives: oil traded in yuan, bilateral currency swaps that bypass the dollar entirely, and even nascent explorations into digital currencies for cross-border settlement. These are not just technical adjustments, they are challenges to the status quo. Any significant change to the petrodollar system could reshape the global economy, potentially leading to a weaker dollar, higher borrowing costs for the US, and a more volatile, multipolar financial world. Yet, the dollar's dominance is deeply entrenched. The sheer depth and liquidity of US financial markets, the trust built over decades, and the lack of a single viable replacement make a sudden collapse unlikely. The network effect is powerful. Nobody wants to be the first to leave a system that everyone else still uses. So, the real question is not the world will move away from it, but will we see a gradual evolution toward a multi-currency world? Or is the petrodollar system simply too powerful, too interwoven into the fabric of our world, to ever truly be replaced? The answer will define the economic landscape for generations to come. Do you think the petrodollar will collapse or stay dominant? Comment below. Like if this helped you understand global economics, and subscribe to Fast Point for more deep dives.